The massive windows of the Galactic Military Academy's observation deck showed the beautiful dance of stars against the dark space. Admiral Du Wan stood there, his gray-blue scaled hands clasped behind his back. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he watched a small human transport ship approach the station. "First time seeing the human ship, Admiral?" General Jayun asked as she walked up beside him. Her crystalline form caught the starlight, making small rainbow patterns on the floor. "First time seeing human cadets," Du Wan replied. "I've read the reports about Earth, of course. A death world. Gravity twice the galactic standard, extreme temperature variations, and predators everywhere." He turned to face his colleague. "But reports are one thing. Seeing is another." Commander Taiyang joined them, his hover chair making a soft humming sound. His species had evolved in zero gravity, making his long, thin body unsuitable for standing in the station's artificial gravity. "The human cadets have arrived at Docking Bay 7, he announced, his translator converting his ultrasonic speech into standard galactic common. Together, the three highest-ranking officers of the Galactic Military Academy made their way to the docking bay. They had overseen thousands of battle simulations, but this one was different. For the first time in the Academy's 300-year history, human cadets would participate in the Joint Species Combat Exercise. The docking bay doors slid open with a soft hiss. 4 human cadets stood at attention, their backs straight and their faces serious. They wore the dark blue uniforms of Earth's Defense Force Academy, with silver pins showing their specializations. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Admiral Du Wan said. "I am Admiral Du Wan, and with me are General Jayun and Commander Taiyang. We will be overseeing your participation in the simulation." The tallest human stepped forward. "Cadet Hansol, team leader, sir." His voice was clear and confident. "With me are Cadet Sunmai, our technology specialist, Cadet Wu Jin, weapons expert, and Cadet Yuna, our strategic analyst." General Jayun's crystalline form sparkled as she moved closer to inspect them. "You all look young," she observed. "We are in our final year at the Defense Force Academy, Mom," Cadet Sunmai replied. Her short black hair was neatly trimmed, and her dark eyes showed intelligence and curiosity. "We were chosen from among 500 candidates for this exchange program." Commander Taiyang's hover chair floated in a circle around the humans, his sensors taking detailed readings. "Fascinating," he whispered to his fellow officers through a private channel. "Their muscle density is remarkable, and their reaction times to my movement. They track perfectly without seeming to focus on me." Admiral Du Wan led the group toward the briefing room. The human cadets walked with precise, measured steps, their movements efficient and controlled. Other alien cadets in the corridors moved aside, some watching with curiosity, others with obvious concern. The briefing room was large and circular, with holographic displays covering the walls. As everyone took their seats, Admiral Du Wan noticed how the humans automatically positioned themselves for maximum coverage of the room. It was subtle, probably unconscious, but spoke of ingrained tactical awareness. "The Joint Species Combat Exercise," Du Wan began, activating the main hologram, "is the most challenging test we offer at the Academy. You will be tasked with defending a civilian space station against multiple waves of automated attack drones. You must maintain life support, protect vital infrastructure, and ensure civilian safety." The hologram showed a detailed model of the station, a standard Type 7 civilian habitat with 12 levels, 4 docking arms, and a central power core. Red dots appeared around it, representing the attack drones. "The simulation typically takes 3 days to complete," General Jayun added. "The current record is 68 hours, held by the Centaurian team from last year." Cadet Hansol studied the hologram intently. "What are the civilian population numbers? And do we have access to the station's maintenance protocols?" The question surprised the officers. Most teams asked about weapon systems first. 2,000 civilians, represented by biosignal holograms, Commander Taiyang answered. And yes, you have standard maintenance access, though most teams find it irrelevant to the combat scenario. The four humans exchanged quick glances. Something passed between them. Some unspoken communication that made Admiral Duwan's scales tingle with curiosity. The simulation begins tomorrow at 800 station time. Duwan continued. You have until then to rest and prepare. Your quarters are in Section C, Level 4. Any questions? Cadet Wu Jin raised his hand. Sir, what are the exact specifications of the maintenance robots and the waste management systems? Again, an unusual question. General Jia Yun's crystalline form flickered, her species equivalent of a frown. That information is available in the station's technical database. But, thank you, Mom. Cadet Sun Mai interrupted politely. That's all we need to know. As the humans left the briefing room, Commander Taiyang turned to his colleagues. Did anyone else notice how they moved? Perfect spacing, constant awareness, synchronized breathing. Even their heartbeats are in rhythm. Admiral Duwan nodded. Deathworld adaptations. They're always ready for attack, always alert. But it won't help them much in this simulation. This is a test of patience, planning, and proper military doctrine. General Jia Yun's crystal body chimed softly, her version of laughter. 3 days is a long time for species evolved to react quickly. I expect they'll either burn out fast or learn a valuable lesson about galactic warfare. Later that night, Admiral Duwan checked the access logs out of curiosity. The human cadets had downloaded every technical manual for the station's maintenance systems, life support configurations, and waste management protocols. They had not accessed any of the weapons specifications or defensive system documents. Strange creatures, he muttered to himself, watching through the security feeds as the four humans sat in their quarters, surrounded by holographic diagrams of robot repair protocols and waste reclamation systems. But I suppose that's what makes them interesting. In their room, the human cadets worked quietly, their faces lit by the blue glow of technical readouts. None of them spoke about their plan. None of them needed to. Growing up on Earth had taught them to see resources where others saw restrictions, to find weapons and tools, and to think in ways that other species considered impossible. Tomorrow would prove just how different Deathworld thinking could be. Admiral Duwan, General Jia Yun, and Commander Taiyang had no idea that their carefully designed 3-day exercise was about to be turned completely upside down. The humans weren't preparing for a long siege. They were preparing for something else entirely. And in 15 minutes, they would change galactic military doctrine forever. The observation room buzzed with quiet excitement as the simulation's start time approached. Admiral Duwan stood at his usual spot by the main window, while General Jia Yun's crystalline form sparkled under the bright lights of the dozens of monitoring screens. Commander Taiyang's hover chair moved smoothly between different control stations, his long fingers checking and double-checking every system. The human cadets are entering the simulation chamber, one of the technicians announced. Through the observation window, they watched as the four humans walked into the large, empty room. The simulation would use advanced holographic technology to create a perfect copy of the civilian space station around them. Every wall, every system, and every simulated civilian would feel completely real. Their heart rates are remarkably steady, Commander Taiyang noted, looking at the biological readings. Most species show at least some nervous elevation before the simulation begins. Admiral Duwan nodded. Deathworld adaptation. They're used to constant stress. He activated the communication system. Cadet Hansol, is your team ready to begin? Inside the chamber, Hansol stood with his team in a tight diamond formation. Ready, sir, he replied calmly. Remember, General Jia Yun's melodic voice chimed through the speakers. Your objective is to defend the station and its civilians for the full duration of the attack. The simulation will last 3 days. Most teams require at least 60 hours to achieve victory. The humans didn't respond. They simply stood there, waiting. Simulation beginning in 3, 2, 1. Mark. The empty chamber transformed instantly. The human cadets now stood in the central control room of a bustling civilian space station. Around them, holographic civilians went about their daily routines. Through the station's windows, they could see the first wave of attack drones approaching. Small, dark shapes against the star-filled background. Every alien officer in the observation room leaned forward, eager to see how the Deathworlders would handle their first combat simulation. They expected the humans to rush to battle stations, to begin setting up defensive positions, to follow the standard protocols that had been refined over centuries of galactic warfare. Instead, the humans did something completely unexpected. Team, split up, Han Sol ordered. Sun Mai, take Wu Jin and head to maintenance level. Bi Yun Ha, you're with me. We're going to waste management. In the observation room, General Jai Yun's crystalline form flickered in confusion. Waste management. The attack drones will breach the outer defenses in less than 10 minutes. They're not even going to the weapons control stations, Commander Tai Yang observed, his ultrasonic voice carrying a note of disbelief. What could they possibly be thinking? Through the monitoring screens, they watched as the human pairs sprinted through the station's corridors. They moved with incredible speed and precision, taking corners at full speed without slowing. Their movements were so fluid and coordinated that several alien observers made appreciative sounds. Sun Mai and Wu Jin reached the maintenance level first. Without hesitation, they began accessing the control panels for the station's repair robots. Their fingers flew over the holographic interfaces as they pulled up system codes and programming protocols. They're reprogramming the maintenance robots. Admiral Du Wan's scales shifted colors in confusion. But those are just basic repair units. They can't possibly help against military-grade attack drones. Meanwhile, Han Sol and Yun Ha had reached the waste management section. They immediately began modifying the recycling systems, rerouting power connections, and adjusting pressure regulators. "Sir," one of the technicians called out, "the humans are accessing multiple station systems simultaneously. They're making changes to life support, lighting controls, and, sir, they're literally modifying every system they can reach." The attack drones were now less than 5 minutes from the station's outer perimeter. Standard doctrine called for immediate activation of shield systems and weapon platforms. But the humans hadn't even looked at the defensive controls. "This is madness," Commander Tai Yang muttered. "They're going to fail in the first wave. Perhaps we should stop the simulation and explain the proper procedures." Admiral Du Wan raised a hand. "No, let them continue. I want to see what they're planning." Through the monitors, they could see Sun Mei speaking rapidly into her communicator, while her hands continued to work on the maintenance robot controls. "Programming complete on our end, team leader. All units are ready for repurposing." "Confirmed," Han Sol's voice came back. "Waste management modifications at 90%. Yunha has finished the life support adjustments. Time to attack." 3 minutes, 17 seconds, Sun Mai replied. "Perfect. Everyone get ready. Remember, we only need one shot at this." The aliens in the observation room exchanged worried glances. The humans seemed completely unconcerned about the approaching attack drones. Instead, they were gathered around various control panels, making final adjustments to systems that should have nothing to do with station defense. 1 minute to contact, the simulation computer announced calmly. General Jai Yun's crystalline form vibrated with tension. "They haven't even activated the shields. Those drones will tear through the station's hull in seconds. 30 seconds to contact." Han Sol's voice came through the communication system, surprisingly calm. "All teams in position." "Ready," came the unified response from his teammates. 10 seconds to contact. Admiral Du Wan shook his head sadly. "Such a waste. I had hoped the humans would at least." Now, Hansol's voice cut through the Admiral's words. And in that moment, everyone in the observation room witnessed something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. The station's maintenance robots, normally slow and methodical repair units, suddenly burst into coordinated movement. Their electromagnetic repair tools, now reprogrammed and overcharged, created a web of energy that caught the first wave of attack drones, like insects in a spider's web. Simultaneously, the waste management systems roared to life. But instead of processing waste, the modified recycling tubes began launching concentrated pellets of compressed material at incredible speeds, turning the station's garbage into devastatingly effective projectile weapons. The station's lighting systems, which everyone had ignored as mere background infrastructure, suddenly began pulsing in patterns that confused and disrupted the attack drone's targeting systems. Areas of high and low pressure, created by the modified life support systems, formed invisible tunnels that forced the drones into perfect kill zones. And in the center of it all, 4 human cadets stood at their respective control stations, coordinating this impossible symphony of repurposed civilian systems with perfect precision. In the observation room, total silence fell as they watched the first wave of attack drones be completely obliterated in less than 30 seconds. Impossible, Commander Taiyang whispered. But the humans weren't finished. They were just getting started. The attack drones from the first wave floated dead in space, their systems completely shut down by the humans' unexpected defense strategy. In the observation room, the alien officers stared at their screens in silence. The simulation clock showed only 7 minutes had passed. Admiral Du-Wan was the first to speak. How did they? The maintenance robots shouldn't be able to do that. Sir, a technician called out, the second wave of attack drones is approaching. It's 3 times larger than the first wave. Through the monitors, they watched Cadet Sunmi's fingers dance across her control panel. The maintenance robots, still crackling with modified electromagnetic energy, moved into new positions around the station. Their normal repair tools now generated fields strong enough to disable military-grade weapons. Team, status report. Hansol's calm voice came through the speakers. Waste management systems at full power, Yunhe reported. We've compressed enough material for another 20 salvos. Maintenance robots are ready, Sunmi added. I've adjusted their electromagnetic fields to match the new drone patterns. Life support modifications are holding steady, Wu Jin confirmed. Pressure zones are perfect for our kill zones. In the observation room, Commander Taiyang's hover chair moved closer to the main screen. They've turned the entire station into one giant weapon, he said, his voice filled with wonder. Every system, every piece of equipment, they're all working together. The second wave of attack drones approached fast. These were larger, better armored, and programmed with more advanced attack patterns. They split into multiple groups, trying to overwhelm the station's defenses from different angles. But the humans were ready. Execute Pattern 2, Hansol ordered. The station's lights suddenly went dark. In the observation room, several aliens made sounds of confusion. But then they saw it. The maintenance robots had arranged themselves in a sphere around the station, their modified repair beams creating a web of light that looked like a glowing net in space. The attack drones flew straight into this web. The electromagnetic fields, perfectly calibrated by Sunmi's programming, shut down their systems instantly. Dozens of drones went dark, floating harmlessly in space. Second group approaching from below, Yunhe announced. Activating waste management defense, Hansol responded. The recycling tubes, now functioning as high-powered railguns, began launching compressed waste pellets at incredible speeds. Each shot was perfectly aimed, guided by the pressure zones that Wu Jin had created using the life support systems. The drones couldn't dodge. The invisible currents of air pushed them right into the path of the projectiles. In the observation room, General Jai-Yun's crystalline form sparkled with excitement. The way they're using the pressure differentials, it's like they're creating invisible walls in space. The drones can't escape their killing zones. Time check, Han Sol called out. 11 minutes since simulation start, Sun Mai replied. Admiral Du Wan shook his head in disbelief. They're going to finish this in minutes, aren't they? Not days. Minutes. The third and final wave of attack drones appeared on the long-range sensors. This was supposed to be the most challenging part of the simulation. Hundreds of drones, all equipped with advanced AI and adaptive combat systems. They were designed to learn from earlier attacks and find new strategies. But the humans had saved their best trick for last. Sun Liddy, initiate final protocol, Han Sol ordered. Initiating, she confirmed. Maintenance robots moving into dispersal pattern. The robots spread out in what looked like a random pattern, but as the alien officers watched, they realized it wasn't random at all. The robots were positioning themselves at specific points around the station, creating a complex geometric pattern. What are they doing? Commander Taiyang wondered aloud. They got their answer seconds later. The maintenance robots activated their modified repair beams all at once, creating a network of electromagnetic fields that intersected and reinforced each other. The pattern they formed wasn't just for show. It was a carefully calculated web of overlapping energy fields. When the final wave of drones entered this web, something remarkable happened. The electromagnetic fields didn't just shut down their systems, they completely reversed their control protocols. The drones turned around and began attacking each other. How is this possible? General Jiayun demanded. The drone's programming shouldn't allow for this kind of manipulation. They're not manipulating the programming, Commander Taiyang realized. They're using the electromagnetic fields to create feedback loops in the drone's sensor systems. The drones think they're attacking enemies, but they're actually targeting themselves. In space around the station, hundreds of attack drones engaged in a chaotic battle against themselves. Within minutes, the entire wave had been reduced to floating debris. Simulation area clear, the computer announced. All hostile units neutralized. Time elapsed, 14 minutes and 37 seconds. Total silence fell in the observation room. The aliens stared at their screens, trying to process what they had just witnessed. A simulation designed to take 3 days had been completed in less than 15 minutes. In the control room of the simulated station, the 4 human cadets calmly began shutting down their modified systems. They hadn't even broken a sweat. Team, Han Sol said quietly. Good work. All systems returned to normal configuration. Admiral Du Wan pressed the communication button. Cadet Han Sol, how did you know this would work? Han Sol's reply was simple and direct. Sir, on Earth, we learn early that everything can be a weapon if you understand it well enough. A tool is just a weapon you haven't modified yet. A system is just a weapon you haven't reprogrammed yet. The Admiral looked at his fellow officers. They all understood that they had just witnessed something revolutionary. The humans hadn't just won the simulation. They had completely changed the way the galaxy would think about warfare. I believe, Commander Taiyang said slowly, we need to update our training manuals. General Jiayun's crystalline form chimed in agreement. And perhaps we need to start thinking more like Deathworlders. The briefing room was silent as the recording of the simulation played on the main screen. Admiral Du Wan had called an emergency meeting of the Academy's senior staff. 50 of the galaxy's top military minds watched as 4 human cadets dismantled their most challenging combat simulation in minutes. Play it again, General Jiayun requested, her crystalline form reflecting the light from the screen. Focus on their initial system modifications. The recording started over. They watched as Sun Mai and Wu Jin reprogrammed the maintenance robots, while Han Sol and Yuna modified the waste management systems. Every movement was precise, every action planned. Look at their efficiency, Commander Taiyang noted, his hover chair moving closer to the screen. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They knew exactly what they were going to do before they entered the simulation. Admiral Du Wan stood up and faced the assembled officers. We need to understand what happened here. Not just the technical aspects, but the thinking behind it. This changes everything we thought we knew about combat strategy. The door opened, and the 4 human cadets entered. They stood at attention, their faces calm and professional. The alien officers turned to look at them with new respect, and in some cases, a hint of fear. "Please, sit down," Admiral Duwan said. "We have many questions for you." The humans took their seats. Han Sol spoke first. "Sir, we understand this may have been an unusual approach to the simulation." Unusual. General Jai Yun's crystal form shined with what might have been laughter. "You turned maintenance robots into weapons, waste disposal into artillery, and life support into a tactical advantage. Unusual doesn't begin to describe it." "Perhaps," Commander Taiyang suggested, "you could explain your thinking process. How did you develop this strategy?" Sun Lai leaned forward slightly. "When we reviewed the station schematics last night, we didn't see separate systems. We saw one connected network of tools waiting to be used. On Earth," Wu Jin added, "we learned to use everything around us. A rock isn't just a rock. It's a weapon, a tool, or a building material. We apply the same thinking to technology." Yun Han nodded. "The maintenance robots already had electromagnetic tools for repairs. We just increased their power and changed their purpose. The waste management system already launched material at high speeds for disposal. We simply adjusted the targeting and compression." The alien officers exchanged glances. This way of thinking was completely foreign to them. Their military doctrine was built on using proper weapons for proper purposes. The idea of turning everyday systems into weapons had never occurred to them. "But the risk," one of the senior instructors spoke up. "If any of those modifications had failed, the station's critical systems could have been compromised." Han Sol smiled slightly. "With respect, sir, that's Deathworld thinking too. On Earth, you learn to take calculated risks because sometimes the safe option is more dangerous than the risky one. We tested each modification in our heads before we made them. We knew they would work." Admiral Duwan walked to the center of the room. "What you've shown us today goes beyond just winning a simulation. You've demonstrated a completely different way of approaching problems." "Sir," Han Sol said, "on Earth, we have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. When you grow up on a world that's trying to kill you, you learn to be very inventive." The Admiral nodded slowly. "And that's what we need to understand. Not just the technical details of how you modify those systems, but the mindset that led you to see those possibilities in the first place." Sun Mai spoke up again. "The interesting thing is, we didn't do anything particularly complex. We just used what was already there in ways you hadn't considered. Every ship, every station, every piece of technology has multiple uses. You just have to be willing to see them." Commander Taiyang's hover chair moved in an excited circle. "This could revolutionize our entire approach to defense, if we applied this thinking to all our systems." "Carefully," General Jai Yun interrupted. "We need to be careful. This kind of adaptability is powerful, but it's also unpredictable. We need to understand it fully before we implement it." Han Sol nodded in agreement. "That's wise, ma'am. On Earth, we have another saying. With great power comes great responsibility. We don't suggest changing everything overnight, but perhaps we could help you see your existing systems in new ways." Admiral Duwan looked thoughtful. "Would you be willing to work with our instructors, help them understand this Deathworld thinking of yours?" The 4 humans exchanged quick glances, then Han Sol spoke for them all. "We would be honored, sir, but we should warn you. Once you start seeing the world this way, you can't unsee it. Every room you walk into becomes a collection of potential tools. Every system becomes a possible weapon." The Admiral smiled. "I think that's exactly what we need. The galaxy is changing, and we need to change with it." He turned to address all the officers. "Today, we've witnessed the beginning of a new era in military doctrine. These cadets have shown us that it's not the strength of our weapons that matters most, but the creativity with which we use the tools at hand. The room buzzed with excited discussion as the officers began to see the possibilities. The humans sat quietly, watching as the galaxy's top military minds started to think in new ways. Commander Tai Yang floated over to Hansel. "You know," he said quietly, "some of our species might find this frightening. The idea that anything can be a weapon in the right hands." Hansel nodded seriously. "That's why discipline and responsibility are so important. On Earth, we learn both the power and the limits of what we can do. It's not about turning everything into a weapon. It's about being ready for anything." The meeting continued late into the night as the humans explained their methods and thinking. With each explanation, the alien officers began to understand not just what the humans had done, but why they had done it that way. A new chapter in galactic military history had begun, all because 4 human cadets had seen possibilities where others saw only limitations. 1 month after the revolutionary simulation, the Galactic Military Academy had changed significantly. Admiral Du Wan stood in his office, reviewing the latest training reports on his holographic display. The implementation of what they now called adaptive system utilization was showing remarkable results. "The latest class statistics, sir," General Jai Yun said as she entered the office, her crystalline form casting rainbow patterns on the walls. "You'll want to see these." The Admiral opened the new file. The numbers were impressive. After just 4 weeks of training under the human cadets, other species have begun showing significant improvements in problem-solving and tactical innovation. The Centaurian team completed their simulation in 36 hours. Jai Yun noted, half their previous time. They used environmental controls to create ice barriers from atmospheric moisture. Very creative. Commander Tai Yang floated into the office on his hover chair, carrying his own set of reports. The Proximan squad turned their communication array into a sonic weapon yesterday. They said Cadet Sunmi's lectures helped them understand signal modification in new ways. Admiral Du Wan smiled as he remembered the day that had started all this. The 4 human cadets had done more than just win a simulation. They had initiated a fundamental shift in galactic military thinking. In the main training hall, Cadet Hansel was conducting a lecture for a group of alien officers. The topic today was environmental adaptation and resource utilization. The audience watched intently as he demonstrated how to turn ordinary cleaning supplies into effective defensive tools. "The key," Hansel explained, drawing diagrams in the air with a holographic marker, "is to stop thinking about what things are supposed to do. Instead, think about what they could do. Every object has potential energy. Every system has unused capabilities." In another classroom, Sunlight worked with a group of technical specialists, showing them how to reprogram standard equipment for emergency situations. Her students were amazed at how simple coding changes could transform everyday devices into powerful tools. "Programming is like language," she told them. "Once you understand the basic grammar, you can write new sentences. The same code that makes a robot clean floors can make it generate defensive fields. It's all about understanding the fundamentals and being creative with them." Wu Jin had taken charge of weapons training, but not in the traditional sense. His classes focused on identifying and utilizing improvised resources. Today, he was teaching a group how to turn kitchen equipment into emergency defense systems. On Earth, he explained while demonstrating how to convert a food processor into a makeshift projectile launcher, "We learned that survival often depends on using what you have, not what you wish you had. Every tool is a potential weapon. Every system is a potential defense." Yoon has specialized in strategic thinking and analysis. Her classes helped officers break free from traditional military doctrine and embrace more flexible, adaptive approaches. Currently, she was running a simulation where students had to defend a position using only maintenance equipment. "Traditional thinking puts things in boxes," she explained to her class. "This is a weapon. This is a tool. This is a civilian system. But reality doesn't care about our boxes. In a real crisis, everything is everything." A medical scanner can be a weapon. A waste disposal unit can be a shield generator. The only limit is your imagination and understanding. In his office, Admiral Duwan received a message from the Galactic Defense Council. They had reviewed the reports from the Academy and had reached a decision. The human training program would be expanded to all military academies across the galaxy. "It's remarkable," Commander Taiyang said, reading the Council's message. "1 month ago, some Council members were worried that this kind of thinking was too dangerous to teach. Now they're making it mandatory. Because they understand now," General Jiayun replied. "The galaxy is changing. We can't rely on traditional doctrine anymore. We need to be able to adapt, to see possibilities where others see limitations." The Admiral walked to his window, watching as a group of cadets from 12 different species worked together to solve a complex problem using only civilian equipment. They were laughing, sharing ideas, building on each other's suggestions. The barriers between species seemed to be breaking down as they learned to think in new ways together. "You know what impresses me most," he said to his colleagues. "It's not just about military applications anymore. This way of thinking is changing how we approach everything. Last week, I saw a maintenance crew using modified cleaning robots to repair hull damage on a civilian ship. They said they got the idea from one of Cadet Sunmiss classes. The humans call it thinking outside the box," Commander Taiyang noted. "Though I suppose for them, there was never really a box to begin with." In the training hall, Han Sol was concluding his lecture. An officer raised their hand and asked, "But how do you know when you've gone too far? When does creative thinking become dangerous?" Han Sol smiled. It was a question he'd heard many times over the past month. "That's why we emphasize responsibility and understanding. Yes, we can turn almost anything into a weapon. But the more important question is, should we? Every tool, every system, every modification comes with responsibility. On Earth, we learned that lesson the hard way. Now we can help you learn it the easy way." As the day ended, Admiral Duwan called the 4 human cadets to his office. They stood before him, still maintaining their professional military bearing, but now with the confident ease of experienced instructors. "The Council has extended your teaching assignment indefinitely," he told them. "They want you to help establish similar programs at other academies. Are you interested?" The humans exchanged quick glances, that silent communication that the Admiral had come to recognize. Han Sol spoke for them all. "Sir, we would be honored. But we have one condition." "Oh, we want to learn too. Every species has its own way of thinking, its own approaches to problems. We want to understand them all. That's how we get better, by learning from each other." Admiral Duwan smiled. This was why the human program had been so successful. They weren't just teaching. They were learning, growing, adapting, just like they'd been taught to do on their Deathworld home. "Approved," he said. "And I think you've just given me the perfect name for the new training program, Mutual Adaptive Development. After all, we're all Deathworlders now, at least in how we think." The humans smiled. In just 1 month, they had started a revolution in galactic military thinking. But more importantly, they had shown that the best way to face the universe's challenges was to face them together, each species contributing its unique perspective to a greater whole. The adventure that had begun with a 15-minute simulation had become something much more. A new way of thinking, a new way of learning, and a new way of growing. Together.